Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Just a giant thank you to everybody with all the kind comments that you guys have shared with me while I was out the Thursday and Friday of last week. It was just weird. Do you guys want a health update? Do you want a medical update? I'll give you one. I just don't know if anybody's tired of hearing about it. I know I am. I am super tired of hearing about my health. So for a very, very fast recap, when I was 15, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's disease, which is a type of blood cancer. And so that would have been 1982. 1982, the chemotherapy and radiation therapy were very, very broad spread and brutal. Today's chemotherapy and today's radiation therapy is still brutal and broad spread, but it is more narrow and more targeted. And so people who get chemotherapy and radiation therapy today will have better long-term outcomes than people who had radiation and chemotherapy back, say, in the 1980s, as I did in the early 1980s. Well, that which saved my life when I was 15 is causing me difficulties now that I am 55. And so the outside of my body, I think we can all agree, looks pretty amazing, right? I think we can all agree. Hello, Laurel, Paul. I think we can all agree that the outside of my body looks amazing, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no question.
Guys, we practiced this in rehearsal. What happened? Come on now. But the inside of my body evidently is feeling the effects of the chemo and radiation from so many decades ago. And I got to tell you, I don't want anybody to feel bad for me or anything like that, because honest to goodness, every day has been a blessing and a gift for me for since I was 15. I mean, I was supposed to die when I was 15. If left untreated, the cancer would have killed me when I was 15. And every day of my life since I was 15 years old, I have been keenly aware that it was a gift and that God has plans for me. I have been keenly aware of that. But again, as I get older, the inside of my body is causing me more and more problems. So back in June, it was mid-June, I had a routine doctor's appointment. They said there's something wrong with your lungs. You got fluid in your lungs. They admitted me to the hospital, and they drained 1.8 liters of fluid from my left lung. That is nearly a 2-liter bottle of soda, just to put it in a size that is perhaps a little bit more relatable. So last week, Thursday, again, I had a routine doctor's appointment, but I had a feeling that I had fluid in my lungs again for a couple of reasons. One, I kept getting short of breath. I had a nagging little cough, and I could not inhale deeply. I couldn't inhale all the way. I felt like I hit a ceiling as I inhaled. So I had a feeling last Thursday when I went to the doctor that he was going to say, hey, you've got fluid in your lungs again, and we need to go down to the ER and get that drained. And so that's exactly what we did. I was there at Advent Health Apopka, and they stick a very long needle in your back. They kind of thread between your ribs, and I felt the little. It's a little abrasion on my back where the needle went in, and it really does. It goes right between my ribs. So they thread the needle really well going between my ribs, and they stick this needle into your lungs, and it drains out the fluid. So I had 1.5 liters of fluid this time. It was 1.8 back in June, 1.5 this time. And they kept me overnight in the hospital just for one night for observation. That was it. And I will tell you that coming out, man, it hurts. The needle itself doesn't hurt, really. The draining of the fluid doesn't hurt. But, boy, as soon as they get the fluid out and your organs all start to go back into place where they were, because a liter and a half of fluid takes up space in your chest, particularly for someone like me with a tiny, tiny little chest, right? I don't have a big barrel chest or anything. I've got a normal sized chest. And man, it hurts the days that follow that. Sometimes it hurts to inhale. It hurts to yawn. It hurts to sneeze. It hurts anytime that you're really hitting the top of your lungs. And I feel great now. I feel fine today. I will tell you, I am aggravated. I am aggravated because now, after 2 trips to the hospital, after 2 stays in the hospital, I still do not have an answer for where the fluid is coming from and how it's getting into my lungs. And so that's frustrating to me. And I would imagine you would be similarly frustrated if you were in the same situation. So I have been on the phone all day in between my work here. I've been on hold all day with different doctors and specialists trying to find an answer to where is this fluid coming from and what's going to be done about it. It could be coming from my heart. It could be coming from an infection. It could be coming from, I don't know. I just don't know. And what I don't want to end up having to do is going to the hospital once a month to get my lungs drained. That sounds terrible. But when I described that, when I asked about that at the hospital, I said, man, I don't want to have to come to the hospital every month to get my lungs drained. They said, oh, people do it all the time. What? People do it all the time? People have to go to the hospital all the time to have their lungs drained? Doesn't that sound terrible? I mean, that just sounds awful. And I will say that if I have to do it again, I will absolutely make sure it's an outpatient procedure because they can do it as an outpatient procedure. There was no reason really to admit me because they had it drained the day I was there, the first day, and then they admitted me after it was done. There's just no reason to do that, and I can just get it done on an outpatient basis. Or I could go down to Home Depot and buy a spigot and just have that attached to my back. I can just pour liquid out. Is anybody thirsty? Because it does look like an India Pale Ale. It does look like a good IPA or something like that. So if anybody wants to see it, the pictures are on the WDBO Facebook page. All right, I hope I've answered everybody's questions about my medical condition. But otherwise, I'm in good health. I feel great. I feel fantastic. We just got to figure out where the fluid's coming from, and then we're going to be good from there. Have you guys ever heard of, and Paul Cross, I think this is going to be more applicable to you perhaps. Have you ever heard of the I-4 dead zone?
No, I haven't.
So while I was, over the weekend, while I was just kind of chilling out, I was just kind of relaxing over the weekend, and I went down this rabbit hole online. I started out on the Orlando subreddit on Reddit, and somebody wrote something about the I-4 dead zone. And then you know how you fall down an internet rabbit hole, right? You click this link, and then you're like, okay, hang on. Well, another thing, you click this link, and you go, well, hang on.
2.5 hours later, you're going,
yeah.
What am I doing?
So I found out about something called the I-4 dead zone, and I'm curious if any of our listeners have ever heard of this. But let me share the research that I found with you, and I will tell you, take it with a grain of salt, okay? Because this has to do with ghosts and early settlers and stuff like that. So take it with a grain of salt, okay? But the quarter-mile stretch of I-4 in Sanford is said to be one of the most haunted highways in America. Just north of Orlando, the highway passes over Lake Monroe. Now, we all know where that is, and Paul, certainly we've reported on crash after crash after crash in that same zone.
Absolutely. It's just north of Sanford and just as you go over that Lake Monroe Bridge into Volusia County.
Well, as the story goes, in the 1870s, real estate tycoon Henry Sanford marketed the southern shore of the lake, Lake Monroe, to new immigrants and to potential citrus farmers. He sold 640 acres to a group of German immigrants who founded St. Joseph's Catholic Colony at the site. A particularly devastating outbreak of yellow fever hit in 1887, and it sealed the fate of St. Joseph's and the surviving settlers who buried their dead in the woods and left the failed colony behind. The land changed hands several times, eventually becoming a part of the city of Sanford. Over the years, the story of St. Joseph's became a local legend. It was said that deadly consequences were in store for anybody who tampered with the gravesite. Locals say a farmer's house burned down after he removed the grave markers, and a child was run over by a drunk driver after he dug at the site. Enough strange activity occurred in the area that it has earned the nickname the Field of the Dead. Well, that sounds terrible. The Field of Dreams is much more accommodating than the Field of the Dead. When Florida began buying up land for the construction of the new highway, which would ultimately be I-4, the field was sold to the state. While the graves were initially marked for relocation, they were either forgotten or deemed unimportant and were paved over. Soon after that, Hurricane Donna unexpectedly changed the course towards Sanford, passing over the grave sites on September 10th, 1960, and leaving a wake of devastation in her path. It was one of the many strange occurrences at the former site of the St. Joseph's Colony. Drivers taking I-4 over Lake Monroe have reported strange interference on their radios, and some claim to have seen ghostly apparitions on the road. Some long-haul truckers have claimed that their CB radios blast with static while driving over that stretch of the highway. The section of I-4 is extremely prone to deadly car crashes, which we've said, and has gained the grim nickname of the I-4 Dead Zone. Woo! I don't know. Has anybody ever heard of that? Let me know. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic and the WDBO app. I love a good ghost story, and maybe that's just a good ghost story, and that's it. But I'm curious if anybody has ever experienced anything like that, driving over that stretch of I-4. If your radios have ever crackled. If you're listening to us, it might have crackled. So, but that's another story. But if you've ever had problems driving over that stretch of I-4, let us know. And if you've ever heard of the I-4 Dead Zone, or if any part of this story, I'm just curious. Is there there, or is this just some crazy ghost story that I happened to stumble into today or over the weekend while I was bored and going through stuff online? 844-580-WDBO. Use the open mic and the WDBO app. Coming up next, everything that you missed. All the news stories you missed while you're at work today. We'll have that for you coming up next. Stay right there. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO continues.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
So we had this peanut butter cheeseburger at Ford's Garage yesterday out in Hamlin in Winter Garden, and it was such a mess. That's what I was saying as we came back on the air. Just talking to our chat group here. If you want to join the chat group and be able to watch the video, see it behind the scenes, just check it out right now on the WDBO Facebook page. But it was a peanut, and the peanut butter just melts under the heat of the burger, and then just the peanut butter comes gooing out of the side of the burger. There was peanut butter everywhere. But I'm sure it tasted just fine. All right, if you're at work today while you're working, here are the stories, here are the headlines that you missed while you were at work today. 3 people, this is according to the Associated Press, 3 people killed after a charter bus carrying up to 50 passengers collides with a vehicle on an interstate in Pennsylvania. CBS News had the headline, former Minneapolis police officer Tao Toe sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison on state charges for his role in George Floyd's killing. I think it's more accurate to say for his lack of a role in George Floyd's killing, because that was one of the many officers that stood around with his thumb, and you get the idea. He didn't do anything as George Floyd was slowly dying. CNN had the headline 4 hours ago, judge dismisses Donald Trump's counter-defamation lawsuit against writer E. Jean Carroll for statements that she made on CNN. The New York Times had the story 3 hours ago. William Friedkin, who is the director of box office hits The French Connection and The Exorcist, is dead at the age of 87. I think we should all be thankful that anybody gets to live to be the age of 87. He lived a very, very, very long life. 2 hours ago, Russia launches deadly strikes on eastern Ukraine residential building. Of course, they launched a strike on a residential building. The Washington Post had this story just 1 hour ago. The National Security Agency has made an alarming discovery. Chinese military hackers have compromised classified defense networks of the United States' most important strategic ally in East Asia. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. Way to go, USA. We've done another great job at something. Paramount. This is a big deal. This is a big business deal that literally broke 35 minutes ago. So this truly is breaking news. Paramount has agreed to sell Simon & Schuster to KKR, which is a private equity firm, in a major changing of the guard in the books business. The deal is worth $1.62 billion, and it will put control of a cultural touchstone in the hands of a financial buyer. So for the first time, Simon & Schuster is not going to be operated and owned by, a literary giant. It is going to be owned and operated by a private equity firm. And lastly, Fox News had this story 31 minutes ago. Sandra Bullock's longtime partner Brian Randall is dead at the age of 57 after a battle with ALS. That's Lou Gehrig's disease. There's a couple of things I didn't know about that one. One, I didn't know that Sandra Bullock had a longtime partner. And I did not know that Sandra Bullock's longtime partner had ALS. I wonder how long he was suffering from ALS. That sometimes takes a long time before someone succumbs to that condition. All right, we were just talking about the I-4 dead zone. It was an internet rabbit hole that I went down over the weekend, and evidently there were some graves buried in the 1870s of some German settlers that now haunt I-4 north of Sanford, right there at the bridge and moving north from there. And then as we go into the commercial break, we're talking about this in the last segment. We go into the commercial break and Laurel says, "Oh, my husband saw a ghost there once." Where the hell were you in the last break, Laurel? So wait.
I didn't want to interrupt you. You're on a roll.
I was on a roll. So you're telling me your husband saw something out there?
So he claims. He says that he was driving there and he, in the median, he saw a couple and the couple seemed to be arguing. And so he looked around to see if their car had broken down, if they needed help. And he says there was nothing around. There was no car broken down. There was no exit or entrance for miles. And he's like, why would a couple just be in the median of I-4 arguing with nothing around? And so he's like, to this day, I think those were ghosts because there was just no logical explanation of why that would be around.
Wow.
Crazy.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, I don't know, some years ago, at least over 7 years ago, but still.
Obviously, sometime between the 1870s and now.
Right.
Yeah. We'll narrow it down just a little bit. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts like that?
I don't know. I'm a huge skeptic. Well, you should
be. We all should be huge skeptics.
But if you tell me go into the haunted house, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I don't want to.
So Halloween Horror Nights not your thing?
No, not at all. And everybody keeps trying to get me to go.
Wow. All right. Hey, coming up in a minute here, this is really interesting. Warren Buffett released a top 12 list. 12 things that poor people waste money on. I bet that everybody in our audience wastes money on at least one or two of these things. I know that I do. Warren Buffett's 12 things poor people waste money on. That is coming up next on The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
Hey, Joe, I've driven over that area a lot and at night, and I've never seen anything. But in my opinion, anybody who dies goes to heaven or hell. So any ghosts or apparitions you see, I believe, are demonic.
Yeah, we're talking about the so-called I-4 dead zone. It's a stretch of highway said to be haunted by ghosts of settlers whose graves were paved over. And this is I-4 right there at the Lake Monroe and the St. Johns River. And it's the bridge and then about a mile north of that. And you'll be glad to know, Laurel, that your husband, Alex, is not alone when it comes to seeing visions.
Hey, Joe, it's Chris from Deltona. Hey, yeah, I travel that bridge multiple times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. And, yeah, I do lose cell phone coverage. The radio doesn't work sometimes. And I actually heard it was an ancient Indian burial ground, too, because of the springs around there. the Indians lived near the springs.
It does seem more. I don't know. I think it's a better story if we're just talking about a story. If they are Indians or Native Americans, than the German immigrants. That the story that I've read at least claims that they are.
Hey, Joe, I wanted to tell you what I know about Lake Monroe and that area. Just the other side of Lake Monroe, there's a place called Stone Island. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. My husband and I tried to build a home out there years ago, would be over 30 years ago, and we couldn't get insurance because it lies very low and because a lot of the property is Indian burial ground.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. If you can't get insurance, I could understand if the plot was too low, if you're going to get flooded. I can't imagine on a document somewhere it says denied insurance because it's an Indian burial ground. I mean, that seems far-fetched, right?
Unless it's like an historical land or something, but I don't know.
Joe, isn't that the way the movie Poltergeist?
Oh, that
started?
was totally Poltergeist. That was
Indian burial grounds, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right.
Joe, I've been down here since 1979. In the early 80s, I heard about that dead zone. So it's been around a while.
Well, it's good to know that I'm not just reading things that have been made up out of whole cloth.
I've been living here in Florida since 1967, and I never heard of the I-4 dead zone. Now, everybody's been an I-4 hostage, but that's another story.
True.
But the only controversial section of the I-4 I ever heard of was the Fairbanks Curve, and for some reason, people couldn't get their S together when navigating that turn.
Well, now let's be fair, and Paul Cross, the I-4 at Fairbanks, the Fairbanks Curve, was once the most treacherous portion of I-4. And,
yes, absolutely.
And I think they built it wrong. It was angled wrong. So it's like a NASCAR track, right? If you're making a left, it angles up on the right. And I think in that case, it was angled wrong when they originally built it. Because since they've redone I-4, we've not heard about near as many crashes on the I-4 curve as before.
That's correct. And a lot of my motorcycle enthusiasts will say that is their death zone. That is a really scary place to drive and ride if you're on your motorcycle, because cars sway from lane to lane to lane, and those curves are just they're just not natural.
Yeah, but they're better now, right?
Better now,
Yeah.
Especially with the express lanes in there, too. They've kind of made it straightened out.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Wow, we have Paul's attention. How about we check that drive here for this afternoon, Paul Cross?
Have a crash right now, Joe.
Don't tell me it's on the Fairbanks Curve.
It is on I-4 westbound before the 528.
Right,
so it's down further south. Okay. They have a left lane blocked there. They do have a crash on Aloma Avenue eastbound at Forsyth Road, and then a broken down vehicle eastbound on 528 after the Beachline East Toll Plaza. That's still blocking the right lane. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
I saw this from Warren Buffett today, 12 things that poor people waste money on. And I love a simple list, broken down, easy to understand terms. And Warren Buffett, if you don't know, he's the big guy at Berkshire Hathaway. He is one of the world's wealthiest men. He's a billionaire. He's the Oracle of Omaha. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska. His Berkshire Hathaway company has never had a stock split. So like a single share of Berkshire Hathaway, I think the last I heard was like $400,000 just to buy one share of Berkshire Hathaway. And his 12 things that poor people waste money on. See if any of these are things that you waste money on. First is neglecting personal development. According to Buffett, the best investment one can make is in oneself. Enhancing skills and education can boost earning potential significantly. Knowing knowledge and abilities are assets that no one can take away from you. Yeah, it's part of the reason why I taught myself to fly drones. It's part of the reason why I've taught myself to shoot and edit video, because I just wanted to be able to continue developing my personal skills. And so that's something that's I'm kind of keen on. Number two is relying on credit cards. Credit cards can be convenient, but high interest rates can quickly overshadow any benefits if you don't pay the full balance monthly. I haven't used a credit card in 8-9 years. I don't have any credit cards. I don't have a credit card balance, except my wife has taught me, wonderfully so, of advantages of using a credit card. And now we buy everything on credit card because we get cash back and we get other rewards for things that we buy. I mean, we got like a $500 cash back just like last month. So, I mean, it's impressive, and we pay it off every month. So we never, ever, ever carry a balance.
This is exactly what I do, Joe. I charge on the credit card. It gets me points. And at the end of the year, I pay it off every month. So at the end of the year, I use all those points to buy my nieces and nephews gift cards for Christmas. That's where we get our money from.
That's great. And I honestly, I didn't understand the whole cash back thing on credit cards and points and other bonuses and stuff that you can get from using a credit card, because I've been so anti-credit card for so very long that it just, when my wife really had to sit me down and explain it to me, it's like, okay, here's how this works. And I'm like, okay, talk slowly so I understand what you're saying here. Frequenting bars and pubs, 12 things that poor people waste money on. Going to bars and pubs, spending on social activities like drinking at bars can add up. Opting for more affordable social gatherings like home get-togethers can help save significantly. That's interesting, isn't it? I'm not one to go to bars and pubs a lot, but I have been known to go to bars and or pubs, sometimes on the same night. So I guess we all need to drink at home, is what it's saying, Paul.
Well, I knew that somewhere there was going to be the drinking or eating, restaurants and things like that. I think that would be one of the things that would be on that list. But
yeah, and it absolutely is. This is also interesting. So the next one on the list is chasing the latest technology. New gadgets may be tempting, but often last year's model serves just as well.
I haven't changed my cell phone in 7 years, 8 years. I'm not one of those chasing technology guys.
And I don't think I chase technology, but I will say that because of my job, I often find that I need to have the latest in technology, just so I can better understand what people are going through, what people are using, what people have, and everything else.
I wonder if we could write that stuff off, because if that's the case, I'm getting new everything.
Oh, you can. Well, you know, your mileage may vary. Check with your tax advisor.
Exactly.
But yeah, typically if it's used for work, yes, you can write that off if you don't take the standard deduction. But I take the standard deduction for the last few tax years because I don't own a home, and I don't even know if home mortgages are tax deductible anymore anyway. I thought that kind of went out. I haven't owned a home in a few years, so I don't know for sure. All right, coming up next here, I'll share with you the rest of this list. So hang on. The 12 things that poor people waste money on, according to Warren Buffett, and I'll have it for you as we continue. Coming up next, everybody stay with us here on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
So the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, has his list of 12 things that poor people waste money on. I like it. He says poor people, not stupid people. Thank you for just saying poor people, because honestly, it should be like stupid people. So
aren't we all poor compared to him?
Oh, compared to him, yes, absolutely so. All right, so let me know, Laurel and Paul, if you guys do any of these things, okay? So overspending on clothes. Buffett, along with other billionaires, leans towards simplicity in his wardrobe. He chooses classic, durable clothes over flashy, expensive brands that result in significant savings. There is a subreddit that I follow called Buy It for Life. And it talks about, you know, when you buy something of good quality, it lasts you forever. And people show off, you know, like shoes they've had for 30 years and stuff like that. Do either of you overspend on clothes?
Not particularly. Where I do overspend on clothes, though, is at Disney. Like, I want the $70 Spirit jersey, and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So Disney. But otherwise, I'm going to Walmart for my sundresses.
PC?
No, I'm very practical. I go to Target, I go to Walmart, I go and get all my clothes from there. And the shoes I had to learn, though, because I was buying shoes at like discount shoe stores and things like that, and I was going through them so quickly. I finally bought a pair of, $80, $90 sneakers, we'll call them, and they've lasted me for 2 years or longer. So I've had to learn that curve.
It is interesting how, again, buy it for life. If you spend a little bit more money on it, it'll last you a lot longer. And then invariably I will find, like if I find a pair of jeans or pants or a shirt that I like or something, I will oftentimes buy 2 or 3 of them, maybe in different colors, because I know that it fits. I know that it's good quality. I know that it's going to last a long time. I might have a problem in overspending on shoes. I might own a few too many pair of shoes, but otherwise I don't think I spend too much money on clothes. All right, the next one, I think we're all going to be guilty at one point or another, buying new cars. Cars are notorious for the rapid depreciation. Buffett recommends buying pre-owned cars and holding them for as long as they're reliable instead of falling for the allure of new models. I know that my most recent car was new when I bought it.
Yeah, my truck was new, and the car before that, my Civic, was new as well.
Paul?
I haven't bought a new car since 2004.
See, that's why he's the billionaire next door, Paul Cross is.
That's
he has
me.
all the money.
Yeah.
I've got the ones of dollars. Yeah.
Ones and ones of dollars. I love this next thing on the list. Unused gym memberships. So not gym memberships, just gym memberships you're not using. Raise your hand if you've ever bought a gym membership and you failed to use it. All 3 of us have our hands up. 4, 5. Okay, everybody has their hands up.
What's that thing? I go to the gym 3 times a week. One of these days, I'm actually going to go in.
So, yeah, I definitely buying gym memberships that you aren't going to use. And next on the list is something very similar, unnecessary subscription services. These days, it's so easy to subscribe to apps. It's simple, and you think, it's only 99 cents a month, a year, or whatever it is. You buy these subscriptions that you forget you even have. And I'll sometimes go through my subscriptions on my iPhone, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I subscribed to that? What was I thinking? Why would I subscribe to that? And I have to go through and unsubscribe to those things. All right, hang on. This is we're having more fun with this. It's lasting a little bit longer. We're going to continue the Warren Buffett list coming up in a moment. 12 things that poor people waste money on, according to the Oracle of Omaha. Warren Buffett, the billionaire owner of Berkshire Hathaway. We will have more coming up for you. Plus the news at the top of the hour. I'm Joe Kelley. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Actually looking a little bit better out there right now. I-4 westbound is back to full speed as you make your way through Lake Mary. You are going to tap the brakes. It looks about Princeton through downtown onto the 408, but again, not as bad as it was even just as little as 15, 20 minutes ago. You're still going to find some slowing westbound Sand Lake to 535, and then from 192 to 429, also a little bit through Champions Gate. And we still have that crash I-4 westbound before the 528 with the left lane closed. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service. For honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction, call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit protechac.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
All right, if you're just joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show, Warren Buffett's 12 things that poor people waste money on. And I'll recap them real quick. Neglecting personal development. Your best investment is yourself. Relying on credit cards. Frequenting bars and pubs. Chasing the latest technology. Overspending on clothes. Buying new cars. Unused gym memberships. Unnecessary subscription services. All right, now we're all caught up. Are you ready for the next thing on the list? I thought this is really interesting. Over-reliance on skincare products. I can't even imagine Warren Buffett saying the words skincare products, right?
Yeah, but his wife's. I don't know.
I don't know what his marital situation is.
Right.
I have no idea.
Probably have quite the routine.
So Buffett advises against overusing or needlessly combining skincare products. Finding a simple and effective routine can save both money and your skin. So can I tell you, I have used the same Neutrogena face moisturizer since I was probably 20 years old. I have used the same face moisturizer every single day of my life, after every shower, every time, since I was, again, like 20 years old. I use the same shampoo. I use the same face soap. I mean, I use the exact same products that I've used. And I don't think my moisturizer is a little expensive. I think it's $9 for a bottle, but the bottle lasts me months. Is $9 a lot for moisturizer? Laurel,
Not nowadays. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you can spend a lot more money than that. I just find that so interesting that of all things that Warren Buffett comments on, skincare products. Next on the list is regular nights out. While socializing is essential, frequent nights out can be a significant expense. Opting for budget-friendly alternatives like home-cooked meals and movie nights can cut costs considerably, especially now. Man, have you guys been to a restaurant lately? Have you seen the prices at restaurants lately? I know that we're kind of complaining about gas prices right now, but restaurant prices are ridiculous. I'm telling you, when I saw the McDonald's was charging $3.19 for a hash brown? A hash brown for $3.19?
Joe, didn't you go to a restaurant and they were out of like ketchup, or they were out of something? Mayonnaise?
Subway. Subway was.
Subway.
That's right. They're out of mayonnaise. How the hell is Subway out of mayonnaise?
Yeah, there's been such a food shortage, and I had somebody that just told me the other day they went to like a McDonald's and they were out of ketchup. It's like, how are you out of ketchup at a McDonald's?
Yes.
My husband and I went out to eat the other day, and it was $50 for just two of us.
And did you have
the food prices?
Did you have cocktails?
No.
Man,
it was literally just a sandwich, 2 sandwiches, a side, and a soft drink. It was $50.
And again, I know we like to bellyache about gas prices, but eating out has become so costly that it is prohibitive now. I mean, we did go out to eat yesterday because I wanted to take my sons out to lunch, and but just the prices are mind-boggling what they're charging for just a cheeseburger or whatever these days.
Well, Joe, we were talking about that in the chat room about how I was redoing my family's budget because we were going through and figuring out where is all the money going. And it was basically oh my gosh, I get home from work or I'm too tired to do anything. Let's just order food. Let's go pick up food. Let's just go out and get food. Next thing you know, the dining out or the eating out from the home was killing us.
Yeah.
And it was a slap of reality. It's like, okay, we're not doing this anymore.
A lot of that changed during the pandemic. A lot of us became more reliant upon getting food delivered during the pandemic. And it was an exciting element to an otherwise terrible time. We're all homebound. We're all stuck at home. We're quarantined, or we have to work from home, or whatever the case is. And to have that occasional food delivery or daily food delivery, it was the bright spot. It was the thing you look forward to.
Oh, come on. When I was a kid, it would be a very much of a treat if mom and dad would go, hey, get in the car. We're going to go to McDonald's. It was like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I remember when a Taco Bell opened in my small town, and we would beg my mom, can we please go to Taco Bell? And my mother cooked every meal, every day, every time. And my mother was a wonderful cook. She still is a wonderful cook. And I would to have my mom's home cooked food again would just make my night. And fortunately, she taught me to cook, and I cook many of the dishes that she made that she taught me to cook. But yeah, eating at home. But sometimes eating at home, we grilled out. We grilled at our we grilled. I don't need to further explain grilling, do I? But we ended up spending like $200.
Fire.
We spent like $235 on just the meats. on
Yeah,
meats.
it depends on what you do. You're absolutely right. If you say, "Hey, I'm going to save some money. Let's just do steaks at home."
Yeah.
No, steaks are flipping expensive.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous how expensive they are.
And I have to make it.
Yeah, right. Right. If I'm going to pay that much for food, I want someone else to make the food for me instead. So definitely regular nights out thing on Warren Buffett's list. Next, I find the next one very interesting, and that is gambling. While gambling might seem like a shortcut to wealth, Buffett emphasizes the importance of understanding the odds. And, when you think of gambling, I'm sure you think of the Hard Rock Casino. You think of Las Vegas, Atlantic City, whatever. I'm thinking about the Mega Millions. I mean, how many people are out spending money on Mega Millions when you're not going to win? I mean, you're just not going to win. Because as Warren Buffett says, you have to understand the odds. And the odds, they publish the odds, and I think it's 1 in 392 million.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
I mean, the odds are not in your favor. If this was Hunger Games, you would have been dead a long time ago. Okay? So gambling is definitely bad. And the last thing on Warren Buffett's list of 12 things poor people waste money on, smoking. Now, smoking, beyond its health implications, is a costly habit. Quitting can lead to a significant boost in your personal budget. I don't have the slightest idea what cigarettes cost.
That was my pitch to my youngest daughter about smoking because her mom's boyfriend would do it, et cetera. And I'm like, yeah, it's bad for you, and that's bad for you. But can you imagine all the money you could spend on something else? I figured that would get to her better than, a health warning is all the money you could spend on candy and clothes.
Can someone in the chat or someone somewhere tell me, what does a pack of smokes cost? How much is a pack of cigarettes? I haven't the slightest idea. And then break it down. Well, how much is it per cigarette? I have no idea. I have never in my life purchased cigarettes. And as I have detailed, I've only smoked one cigarette in my life, and it was only 3 puffs. And it was about, a month ago. It was not very long ago. It wasn't something I did in my youth. It was something I did like last month, just because somebody handed me a cigarette. So Elizabeth's in the chat says Disney sells cigarettes for $11 and change. Yes, but Disney also sells turkey legs for like $17, okay? I'm not buying the whole turkey. I just want the leg. Mark says about $9 or $10. Is that right? $9 or $10 for a pack of cigarettes? Oh, my gosh. That is a lot of money. I can't even imagine spending that kind of money on a pack of cigarettes. Really interesting story out of South Florida. There is this private organization called Adventures with a Purpose. Adventures with Purpose. And they're a group of volunteer scuba divers based out of Oregon, the state of Oregon. They traveled across the nation using sonar technology to search bodies of water in an effort to crack cold cases. So they look for bodies, and more times than not, they're looking for cars that are sitting in the bottom of lakes somewhere around the United States. Well, they went down to South Florida on a cold case, one particular case they were looking at, and they went scuba diving in this murky lake in Doral, just west of Miami's International Airport. And Laurel, I see you're nodding your head. Have you heard this story, Laurel?
Not this story, but I often watch Adventures with a Purpose on YouTube. They have quite a YouTube channel.
Oh, my gosh. Those are those guys that found...
Yes.
Oh,
you came in here the other day, and I was telling you about them.
Yes.
Yes, they're amazing. They are such good people. I don't want to interrupt your conversation, but I'm sure people can find this on their YouTube channel.
Because I remember they went to Oklahoma, and they found a car that had been missing since like the 1970s, and there were skeletal remains still in the car.
There often are, and they're really polite about getting the police involved so everything's contained, and these families have closure. They're really awesome. They
really do know what they're doing, and they're not just a bunch of good old boys out there having cigarettes and whatever else is expensive and grilling steaks and such. But they do a very good job. But get this. They're in this murky lake in Doral, and they're looking for a car. Well, they didn't find a car. They didn't find 2 cars. They didn't find 3 cars. They found 33 cars. 33 cars at the bottom of a lake in Doral. Now, we are surrounded by bodies of water. You ever watch that show and I think it's called Drain the Oceans, and they show you what if they were to drain the oceans, all these things you'd find at the bottom of the oceans?
Often shipwrecks, they'll show you what the ship looks like at the bottom of the ocean, yes.
Can you imagine if we drained all of our swamps and ponds around Central Florida? Can you imagine how many cars would be down there? And they found 33 cars. And now the police are saying, look, they're saying we don't have the resources to be able to do stuff like this, to be able to go and look in every pond for cars, for cold cases. And maybe they don't. And maybe that's where organizations like Adventures with Purpose comes in and they help out like this. But now they are saying that the Miami-Dade Police Department is saying that they will be investigating each case and they plan to remove every vehicle from the water.
They often made a point in one of their videos saying if you're driving and you see railing, like the railing to keep you on the road, broken, oftentimes the state's construction crew or whatever will come in and just fix it. And they won't think anything of it. But you need to call that into the police because that means somebody went through that railing. So even if you as a driver see broken railing, it's important to maybe call the non-emergency line and be like, hey, maybe someone who needs to look into that body of water because somebody obviously went through this railing, and half the time we don't think about it.
Terry in our chat group just made the comment that I was going to make, and that is this is why they want fences around retention ponds. You'll see a lot of retention ponds that'll have chain link fences up around them, these ugly chain link fences. And you might think to yourself, I wonder why they have a chain link fence around the pond. And especially ponds that are very close to busy roads. I think of the roads that go behind Disney, and there are several ponds back there, and they all have chain link fences around them. And really it is, the fences are so that people can better know if a car has gone into a pond. I remember I was driving down the 429 out in Winter Garden a couple of years ago, and I saw tire tracks that went from the road through the grass and towards the pond. And my brain took a second to register it, and of course I was booking it at 60, 70 miles an hour on the toll road there. And so I was already past where I saw the tire tracks that led into the lake. I was already past it by the time my brain said, oh my gosh, did a car go into that lake? And so I turned around, which is not easy to do on a toll road, right? So I had to exit, turn around, come back, come all the way back around. And I pulled over and investigated for myself to see, did those tire tracks really lead to the water? And what I figured out was it was not a car going into the water. It was one of the mowing machines that had driven that way, but its tire tracks made it look like it went into the pond. So I got back in my car and drove on. I didn't report anything, but I can only imagine how many of our ponds have cars at the bottom of them.
I was driving to work early one morning, and I was on 192 right before the I-4 exit, and I saw them pulling a car out of a pond there. It was early in the morning, and my heart just broke.
And if you're new to Florida and you don't already have one, you need to get a glass break device, a little hammer, something that you keep in your car. It's got to be installed. You need to screw it down onto something. Otherwise, when your car rolls over 2 or 3 times and you end up in a pond, if it's just sitting in your center console, then you're going to have it lost. But you need to have a glass break device of some sort in your car. And Paul Cross, you can also use I've seen people claim that you can use your headrest to break the windows. You use a little...
Yeah, if you can take that headrest out of there and the metal poles in there, bang the window out, you could do that. This is one of my wife's biggest fears.
It's one of all of our biggest fears, Paul.
I wonder, but she drives over Lake Jessup. Okay, that's like Alligator Lake, I guess.
Alligator Lake, yep.
Yeah, and she drives over that every day to and from work as a school teacher, and she says she's never not anxious when she drives over that bridge, thinking someone's going to hit her, moving over, merging, doing whatever, and she's going to go into that lake.
Yeah. I fully understand that. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. Washington, D.C. transportation officials say Beyonce paid $100,000 to keep all metro stations open after her concert Sunday night. The pop superstar's show got delayed due to heavy rain and lightning. Beyonce shelled out the money to keep trains running and have all 98 stations stay open an extra hour. 2. Severe weather is expected to impact millions of Americans today. Forecasters say that severe weather is making its way into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. The National Weather Service says there are increasing threats for thunderstorms and heavy rain as far south as Tennessee. 1. A former attorney general in the Trump administration says he's willing to testify against the former president. Speaking on CBS's Face the Nation, Bill Barr reiterated that he had told Trump in no uncertain terms that there was no evidence of fraud in the 2020 presidential election.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
So when I lived in Oklahoma, our backyard had a pond, a pretty good-sized pond. It was like a 3-acre, 2.5-acre pond. And it had just massive catfish in it. And we would go down to the feed store and buy... we would buy fish food at the feed store, so not the little food that you sprinkle into your aquarium at the house, but we bought real, wild game fish food, and so we would feed the catfish and get them all plump, just build up these giant catfish, and we would go out and you could put anything on a hook. You could put a hot dog, you could put a marshmallow, you could put Rice Krispies, you could put bread. I mean, you could put anything on a hook, and the catfish would come get it, and we would always just catch them and release them because gross. But in that pond, there was a hill behind the pond, and after we bought our house and moved in, we found out that somebody died in the pond behind our house, that they were coming down the hill in their car and had some sort of medical emergency, a heart attack or something like that, lost control of the vehicles before all the houses were there, and the guy drove into the pond, and they ultimately had to pull his body out of the pond. I don't know if they pulled the car out or not, but I found this out again after we had bought the house, right, that someone died in the pond behind our house. Well, I told my kids, because my kids were with me when a neighbor told me the story. And I turned to my kids and said, whatever you do, never, ever, ever repeat this story. Don't ever tell your mother that someone died in the pond behind our house because she will want to sell the house immediately upon learning that someone died in the pond behind her house. Not even died in the house, but in the pond behind the house. That was close enough. And sure enough, boy, kids are terrible at keeping secrets, aren't they? They're just, hey, Mom, did you know someone died in the pond behind the house? Kids telling all the good stories. All right, 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic and the WDBO app. We're also talking about the price of cigarettes. We're talking about the price of everything. And none of us are smokers, so none of us know what the price of cigarettes are.
Joe, it's $5.50 to $10 a pack for smokes.
That's a lot. That's a lot for a pack of cigarettes. And then you got the health benefits or the health detriments to that as well. That just seems like not the wisest use of spending one's money. My name is Joe Kelley. We will continue here at the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
So I don't know if you know this guy. His name is Mr. Beast. It's not his real name. His name is not Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast is a YouTube celebrity. His name is Jimmy Donaldson. But he, it's really not just about Jimmy Donaldson. Mr. Beast is kind of like a group of like 4 or 5 guys. It's funny. I say 4 or 5 guys. One of them is actually transitioning. And that became a bit of a controversy for Mr. Beast. One of them is transitioning into a woman. And the latest video that they posted yesterday has quickly become YouTube's most watched video. It got 63 million views in less than 24 hours. It is risen faster. Is that the right form of that word? Rose faster than any other YouTube video other than music videos. So aside from, I don't know, Beyonce or the chick with the thing, it's done better than any other video. And in the video, they strand themselves at sea for 7 days. And they have to survive at sea for 7 days. And I'm sure they have a safety net, if you will, boats off in the distance that could swoop in and help out if need be. But it was a pretty good video if you follow Mr. Beast. And there is a local connection here with Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is suing an Orlando-based ghost kitchen that bears his name. So Mr. Beast partnered with this restaurant company, this corporate restaurant company, to create restaurants nationwide called the Mr. Beast Burger. And what Jimmy Donaldson found out, again, the beast of Mr. Beast, is that the Mr. Beast Burger is crap. And he has now filed lawsuit against the guy and against the company. It's a Florida-based company called Virtual Dining Concepts and 2 other companies that are involved in this. He's suing them for damaging his reputation after receiving complaints about the burgers being inedible and disgusting. Now, a ghost kitchen, do you guys know what a ghost kitchen is? Laurel, do you know what a ghost kitchen is?
Yeah, so they use a already standing kitchen of a restaurant or whatever that will serve their food kind of separate from the food they sell at the restaurant location.
Right, and oftentimes the only way to get the food, depending on the ghost kitchen, the only way to get the food is to have it delivered. So sometimes they will literally cook out of their houses, or they'll cook out of a kitchen that has no public access. And so a ghost kitchen's the only way to order food. Like there have been times in which this is, kind of piggybacks off of our conversation about getting food delivered during the pandemic. But during the pandemic, when I lived in downtown, there was a couple of kitchens that showed up for delivery, and it said located in downtown Orlando. And I'm like, wait a minute, I live in downtown Orlando. There is no such kitchen. There is no such restaurant in downtown Orlando. And then I realized those were ghost kitchens. And like there's a pizza company in downtown. There's a place that cooks was supposed to be astonishing pizza that you get from a ghost kitchen. Then there's no actual dining hall where you can sit down and eat it. But Mr. Beast is suing the burger place, virtual restaurants. So it's a virtual restaurant or a ghost kitchen. The lawsuit claims that Virtual Dining Concepts has damaged Mr. Beast's reputation, citing negative reviews from customers, including undercooked meat, cold fries, and unbranded packaging. Donaldson also alleges that, despite the brand's significant earnings, it hasn't received any payment. Well, yeah, that's going to be an issue now, isn't it? Mr. Beast Burger launched in September 2020 with Virtual Dining Concepts. And, of course, that was right at the time, in the middle of the pandemic when we were all so excited to get foods delivered to us. So, and check out Mr. Beast, that latest video. It is pretty cool. The video of them at sea for 7 days. On the more serious side, there's a new plan afoot. If you have guns, if you have so-called assault weapons with high-capacity magazines, you're going to want to know about House Democrats and their plan to push a 1,000% excise tax on so-called assault weapons. As a new federal edict can come down that vastly changes the definition of a gun dealer, House Democrats are pushing to slap a massive tax on what they term assault weapons. On Friday, 25 House Democrats proposed a 1,000% excise tax on, again, assault weapons and large capacity magazines. And so it's not it's not with large capacity magazines, so it's and large capacity magazines. So that means 1,000% excise tax on magazines as well. The bill, sponsored by Representative Don Beyer of Virginia and 24 other Democrats. Republicans control the House with a narrow majority, so it's probably not going to go anywhere. It is interesting that the Democrat who sponsored this is from Virginia. Virginia is also home of the NRA. They're located just across the Potomac from D.C. in Virginia. Byers proposed a similar bill last year that put 1,000% excise tax on anything that was or was a part of a semi-automatic weapon that could hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Now, this is one of the ways that Democrats, try to get around the Second Amendment. They try to do an end run on the Second Amendment, and instead of just, attempting to ban these guns, which they know they're not going to be able to do, they will instead try to jack up the prices to the point at which they're inattainable. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of what's called the Streisand effect. But this is going to be a classic case of the Streisand effect. Barbra Streisand, it's named after Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand, let me step back a little bit. The state of California was doing a study on coastal erosion. And so they flew along the California coast in a helicopter, and they took pictures of all of the cliffs, many of which were crumbling into the ocean as part of erosion. Well, they inadvertently took a picture of Barbra Streisand's massive estate in Malibu up on the cliffs that overlook the Pacific Ocean. Well, nobody knew about it. Nobody cared about it. Nobody was interested in looking at Barbra Streisand's house until Barbra Streisand screamed bloody murder and insisted that her privacy was being invaded. She clearly knows nothing about American privacy laws. If it's visible from the air or visible from the street, it is not an invasion of privacy. And this was a helicopter shot from over the ocean, and it was not an invasion of her privacy. But she made such a big stink about the picture that suddenly everybody wanted to see it. And suddenly everybody wanted to stick a thumb in Barbra Streisand's eye and started recirculating the photo. So that has now become known as the Streisand effect, when you try to bury something only to have it boomerang on you and become a really big deal. Well, this is exactly what's going to happen with the House Democrats proposing a 1,000% excise tax on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Do you have any idea how many guns the Democrats just sold with this ridiculous proposal? More and more gun-loving Americans are going to be out buying so-called assault weapons due to the Streisand effect, and because they're aware of this now, and just in case the Democrats were successful, they want to get ahead. Gun owners want to get ahead of the 1,000% excise tax and buy up a bunch of guns right now. I guarantee it. I'm Joe Kelley. You're listening to WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
All right, now ponder this. Think about all the Republican presidential candidates, all right? You got a list. You can see it in your head. You got all the Republican presidential candidates. Who do you think is, according to a survey, the most disliked GOP candidate? Do you guys have any guesses? Laurel, Paul, do you have any guesses? There's no wrong answers, except for all the wrong answers. But
I'm going to guess Trump. He's as equally loved as hated.
That's a very good guess, and I understand your thought process, and I probably would have said the same thing had I not read this, but it is incorrect.
Seeing his polling results, maybe DeSantis, he's becoming more polarizing than anything now.
Again, a good guess, and I can see how you came to that, but it is not the right answer. A couple people actually in our chat group are now saying Pence. 4 people saying Mike Pence. No, the most disliked GOP candidate is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He is the most disliked Republican candidate in the GOP primary field, according to this week's Morning Consult survey. Trump continues to stand as the candidate with the highest favorability among Republicans, with 71% viewing him favorably. Governor DeSantis is in second place with 63% viewing him favorably. Both Trump and DeSantis see roughly a quarter of respondents viewing them as unfavorable. The former Vice President, Mike Pence, about half view him favorably. He has the second highest unfavorable rating amongst all the candidates listed, with 39% saying an unfavorable view. So for everybody in the chat group who guessed Mike Pence, you were second. You came in second place to Chris Christie. 45%. So Mike Pence is 39% unfavorable. Chris Christie's unfavorable is 45%. So coming up on half of the GOP views him unfavorably, which puts Chris Christie in a unique position because it allows him to be a vicious attack dog against Donald Trump, and he doesn't have to worry about his unfavorability ratings because he already has won in that department. He is already the most unfavorable person there is. And I firmly believe that Chris Christie has joined the race for one reason and one reason only, and that is to be an attack dog against Donald Trump. He is going to take all of the spears for attacking Donald Trump and trying to take down Donald Trump. I believe that is Chris Christie's purpose in life in joining the race for the White House, because there ain't no way that he is going to win the White House, but he could certainly inflict damage on Trump if he found the right chord, if you will. I'm Joe Kelley. Last hour, Sean Hannity is coming up next here on WDBO.